Hello and welcome to a brand new Corn Nation overreaction here on YouTube and, of course, your fine podcast app of your choosing. I don't know. That was weird. I'm your host, Greg Mahochko, and joining me is the man of the hour, too sweet to be sour, Mr. Haas Reuter. Haas, we're celebrating a dub from Friday Night Football.
To quote Kevin Malone from The Office, It's just nice to win one.
Yeah. So speaking of The Office and Kevin Malone, Nebraska had 3 turnovers late in that game. 2 of them were fumbles, one Emmett Johnson, one Anthony Grant. Apparently it's Illinois' thing when the other team fumbles that they show Kevin Malone coming into the office and fumbling his pot of chili.
Did they do a live recreation of that with Brett Bielema as Kevin Malone?
They could have, but no, they didn't.
I have to give them points for creativity. That's funny. Yeah, okay.
Whatever. And I'll say this, having never been, and this is not news, if you're hearing this for the first time, it's because you haven't been around long enough. But having never taken in a game at Memorial Stadium in Lincoln, I've been to 3 games now at Illinois Memorial Stadium. They have the marching band on the north end zone. They have the student section right above that. That place gets loud. That side. So for context, Illinois' first drive was heading to that end zone when Nebraska made the 2 back-to-back stops inside the 1, and then they had the ball with the back nose of the football pretty much on the goal line. They had the student section, which was probably at that point, I don't know, a couple grand strong, like 3-4 grand strong, something like that, with the band right in their ear holes. They were able to tune it out. I mean, that was Adam Carricker said, on his gut reaction that may have been the turning point of the game. And it happened so early. But, we saw Illinois drive in that first possession. We saw them drive in their last possession. They didn't do a whole lot in between. I know they had the touchdown, obviously, in between, but they didn't do a whole lot offensively. I got to say this, and I'm probably jumping ahead, so I apologize. Where would this team be without Tony White in the defense?
Potentially winless.
Right.
It's not hyperbole either.
No.
Truly, I think we would be looking at probably an 0-6 start with the lack of offensive talent we have. And if we had a defensive coordinator who was kind of maybe trying to put a round peg into a square hole, similar to past DCs that we've had. So, yeah, I mean, Tony White is worth his weight in gold.
I wasn't paying it. The one thing that I think, I forget, because I go to again, this is the 4th Nebraska game I've been to in person. I went in the last 3 were all in Champaign. The first one was in Pasadena. It was UCLA. It was 2012. But the one thing I always take for granted from watching at home versus being in the stands is, and I was saying this to my buddy who was there with me last night, and my boy, my oldest, Garrett, was there. He was a trooper, dude. We'll talk about that. But I said, it doesn't – you always get skewed off because we were closer to the end zone than the 50, and there was a Heinrich Harburg run or something like, oh gosh, it looks like he got 2 yards and he got 8 yards on the carry, something like you always the distance of a play always gets skewed a little bit when you're there in the stands. Always forget that.
Yeah, it's funny how watching on TV is almost more of a intimate view of the game than being at the game. It's just like, you miss so much of the context when you're in the stadium. And then when you get home and you rewatch it on the replay, you're like, holy shit, like that play did that, or you just have a little bit better of an idea of things.
Which is one of the things that I haven't done yet. It's 3:00 in the afternoon on Saturday. I have not sat down to watch the replay. Not entirely sure it got recorded, if I'm being honest. I know that Garrett was asking if my wife was going to watch the game, and then the twins chirped up because we were FaceTiming, and Rob's like, ball game, go. So I know they watched the ball game at least till the twins went to bed. I just don't know. I'm not sure if I got recorded. I haven't gone back to the DVR yet, but I tell you what, we got to Champaign about 5:00. And started just walking towards the stadium from parking. And it was chilly, but not cold. I mean,
Whoa, you told me that it was damn cold when I texted you.
That was at the beginning of the game, right?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. So we're walking down. It's, at ground level. And, I hadn't put on my hoodie yet. I was still in short sleeve jeans, whatnot. It was fine. Garrett had his zip up hoodie on. He was fine. We walked around the Grange Grove there. They had some student groups out there. My boy, he loves animals. So he got kind of gravitated towards the biology tent, and he was telling all of his knowledge that he knew about bugs and bats. So he had a good time. And that really, I think, set the hook, to use a fishing analogy. Then we got to our seats, and the wind was going west to east, as most winds do. And it was right in our face. And that's when we're like, the only thing I didn't account for was the wind.
Like a little windbreaker.
Didn't have, we all had hoodies, but as the night went on, my boy was getting cold.
That's right. Wind will take it right out of you.
Yeah. But right after kickoff, we'd been there about 2 hours, in the elements. Right after kickoff, he says, "Can we go home now?" I was like,
no.
And to his credit, my boy was a trooper. I asked, after halftime, he said, "We can stay till the end." And then a little bit later, he say, "When can we leave?" And this was when we were up 20-7. I said, "I'm not really comfortable with a 13-point lead." So if they extend it to 27-7, we can go. And possession after possession after possession, Nebraska gave it away. So we ended up, we were walking out of the bleachers as Nebraska was in victory formation, taking the final knees. So
felt good to see that.
There's something, the best formation in football is the victory formation.
Much like you, when we were up 13 and they were driving downfield, I found myself being very, very nervous. And the people I was watching with was like, "Oh no, we'll be fine." I'm like, "No, like I've seen this too many times to assume that we'll be fine."
There was like 4 minutes left, and they were
scenario.
Yeah, it's the perfect scenario that Nebraska has buckled in the past, right? I was watching. They were 3 down linemen. They had Gunnarsson in there. They'd been rotating Robinson and the Polar Bear in and out a little bit, but there was a pretty small defensive front 3 that was down, and everybody else was playing off the line. I'm like, this is where they're going to chew us up, and they did. And bend but not break, I guess, was the theme of the night for the defense. But as I'm watching this, I'm like, there's 4 minutes left, and we're playing off the ball. We're playing not to win. We're playing to not lose, which I think was the whole way the whole second half went.
For me, I was so concerned with when they were driving there at the end is they'd get a score, it's 20-14, and then maybe they get an onside kick, or maybe they kick off deep to us and we just, mess up with the clock management, or we have a turnover. And next thing we know, it's the end of the game and it's Illinois with a walk-off 21-20 win. It's like we've just seen it so many times,
right,
that's where our mind goes. And I think that it was the defense. I don't think the defense played conservatively in the second half, but as a team overall, the offense, I don't think it was by design that we played conservatively. I just think that we had some execution issues.
We 10-ish. It was the front half of the final quarter, if that makes any sense. Yeah. And Illinois has the ball, and Garrett says to me, he's like, "I have to go to the bathroom." I said, "Okay." So we hustle down the ramps as quick as we can, get him to the nearest bathroom, and we're down there, and I hear an eruption of applause. I said, "Oh, man." So we get back up to our seats, and I asked my buddy Mike, I said, "What happened?" He's like, "Oh, Nebraska intercepted." I should have known, because at that point, I'm pretty sure Nebraska fans outnumbered Illinois fans.
Yeah, it looked pretty empty there by the end.
I remember late in the third quarter, I messaged my buddy Josh, who's the reason I'm a Nebraska fan, really one of the big reasons.
Friend of the show,
Josh. And I said, are they? What do the stands look like behind the Nebraska bench? Because I feel like it's pretty bare. And he says, like, dude, they haven't showed the crowd since halftime.
It was empty. They really just kind of kept the tight view of the field.
Yeah. And it's odd because, it's Friday night in a college town. It's not great weather. Neither team was playing great. So I understand why, like, the college kids would, make the mass exodus.
It's not like there's a whole lot to do in Champaign.
No, there's not. But by the end, there were very significant Nebraska chants. A lot of the Nebraska fans, I think, really started to merge towards the center behind the Nebraska bench. There was an injury timeout, one of like a million last night, but it was towards the end of the game. And Nebraska fans are chanting at the team, and the defense is turning around and showing love too. So, a lot of appreciation for a little bit of back forth. Of course, that just got a bigger reaction from the fans. Overall, real positive experience for the three of us. Little concession snafu, but it worked out better than we could have thought. We just didn't get home till 2:15 because that was a long game. If you could imagine, and look, I'm not saying these are the harshest conditions that football has ever played, and I'm not making that statement at all. But my boy's 7. It's his first game, and I underdressed him. Like, he had a hoodie. Underneath the hoodie, he had a T-shirt. I also was underdressed. We just weren't anticipating the. But of all the nights to have all the injury timeouts and all the other stoppages of play, and I think I was reading Andy Ketterson's recap on coordination this morning, and he said, like, they were about to start the fourth quarter and they were 3 hours and 10 minutes into the game or something like that.
It was a 3 hour, 46-minute game, even with the new clock rules. It's like, why even make the change? It's bullshit.
And I was telling Mike, because Mike's not a football fan. Like, his most he went because I asked him. Like, I wasn't trying to convert him. I wasn't trying to say, like, here's the glory of Nebraska football. He went honestly because I wanted to go, and I wanted to take my boy. But I was like, let's have another adult there, for whatever. And Mike's a good dude. But his like most sports stuff is he's a big UFC guy. So I was kind of explaining to him, I'm like, yeah, you're going to see all these like stoppages in play. I said, you'll come out of a timeout, that was a commercial break. You'll have a score, and then you'll have the extra point, and then you'll have a commercial break, and then you'll have the kickoff, and then you'll have a commercial break. I said, because the media companies, be it ESPN, I mean, it's not just this game, but it's all football, the ESPNs, Fox Sports, etc. They are paying a lot of money for these games, and so they have to make that back up through advertising. So Nebraska is the beneficiary of the media rights deal, but the fans aren't. No,
especially when you get into those games late in the year when it's cold outside, November. Those TV timeouts can just be brutal.
Yeah. So I get why the stands started emptying out.
It sounds like it was a great positive experience. First game for your son.
It was until about 3:45 this morning, I heard, because that's when he was throwing up.
Oh, concession stand snafu?
No, I don't know. I think it was just a confluence of everything. The late night, a couple more like sody pops than he would normally have, a little bit of the food, the cold. I just think it was just the perfect storm of a bad situation. But he's fine. He's watching cartoons right now. He's happy as can be.
Yep.
So, but let's get back into the game, shall we? Nebraska. Let's talk about that goal line stand, because that did not come without a rain of boos from the Illinois faithful who were there.
Good. I'm glad that Bert, that overrated pompous douchebag, got humbled a little bit.
Oh.
I got blocked by him on Twitter back in 2015. And I'm
not surprised at all.
I'm still blocked by him. I said some things that I probably shouldn't have, I could admit that, but still, I just don't like the guy. I think, he's really toyed with Nebraska over the years, even going so far as to plant, the BS in the media about we were contacting him for the job in 2014 after we fired Pelini, stuff like that. The guy's just a troll. But I think that goal line stand after Illinois got the kickoff and went downfield in position to score and put an already anemic offense, ours, behind the 8-ball, that goal line stand, even before I heard Rule say it in the post game, felt like that was a cultural turning point for this program. It felt like it injected some overall confidence because we didn't score a touchdown on the following drive, but we went 90, drove it 99 yards essentially for a field goal,
Right.
And so that was huge to be able to get points out of it. It'd been good enough to get the stop. Maybe you go 3 and out. You punt it away, you flip field position. But to get points out of it, I think really gave this team some confidence. I think that, they were able to finally realize it becomes an experience that you draw upon when you encounter difficulty the next time.
I want to pull up a reference point that's going to make you, me, and Nebraska fans both happy and sad.
Okay.
We got to go back a number of years, but I recall the last time Nebraska started a drive inside their own 1 was a bowl game, and it was the longest recorded. It set a record for the longest recorded touchdown pass. I believe it was Tommy Armstrong to Quincy Enunwa. I know Quincy was the receiver. So that's the happy part. The sad part is that was against Georgia, and we won that game. And look where
10 years ago this January.
Look where we've gone since then. Look where they've gone. Look where we've gone.
To quote the Grateful Dead, what a long, strange trip it's been.
But you're right. You're absolutely right too. And as I mentioned, you've got. We all know the rules of the amount of noise that you're allowed to make as an entity. Fans can make as much noise as they want, but the PA music and the band all has to be quiet when I believe it's right before the cadence begins.
Something that Big Ten schools play those rules a little fast and loose, because when I was at Northwestern in 2018, they had a DJ set up on the terrace in the north end zone in Evanston, scratching records, and he would keep it going well after the cadence started.
Wow.
And a freshman, Adrian Martinez, is trying to call out the signals, and this douchebag DJ is still doing his thing. And in my opinion, it directly contributed to the high snap in overtime that year that Adrian had to corral, and we, missed a field goal, or I think we had to go for it on 4th and really long and didn't get it. But I think that's, I think a lot of Big Ten West schools played a little fast and loose. Did Illinois do the same thing?
They were, I'll say this, the band and stuff, they were going right up to when Harburg was going. I mean, look, we remember there were two plays from inside the 1. The one was the false start. But again, you're inside the 1, half the distance to the goal line. There's not a whole lot of room to go. And then the other one, he's under center because he's getting that push from behind. Ended up getting with the push and the fact that he's 6'5", I think.
4.65, yeah.
Got a couple of yards, a little, Scotia breather. And then, of course, it opened it up with a nice pass right after that. So I'll say, they did it. I think Illinois did it right. If it were a bigger rival, if it were a Northwestern or, Indiana, if that's where, I don't know, then I think that might have, pushed the boundaries a little bit more. But you're right. Facing the adversity, again, being in the more hostile end of the stadium and able to just put all that in the background and get out of that situation, because that could have been very bad. I said to Mike, I'm all right, we got to stop just to, because we're Nebraska fans and we're used to more negative than positive, it seems. I said, well, we got to stop. Now what's going to happen is we're going to get a safety and we're going to have to kick the ball back to
At that point, all I wanted after getting the stop was just take care of the football, get a good punt, flip field position. That's all I was looking for.
If you're a Nebraska fan and the thought of a safety didn't cross your mind when Nebraska made that 4th down stop, I think you're lying to yourself.
Exactly. We are conditioned at this point. It's been the worst. But, I think since we're on the topic of the goal line stand, we should probably just talk about the defense first before getting into the offense. And, And like you alluded to earlier, where would we be without Tony White? You are seeing what I've always wanted a Nebraska defense to look like in the Big Ten. And yes, I can't wait until the day comes that we have superstars, as Cam Lenhart develops and
Who will be on his way.
Develops, guys like that. But right now, we just are solid at all three levels with guys that are just being coached up and developed. So, like, it's a perfect mixture of strength and conditioning, of scheme, of technique, good development. And these guys are just fundamentally sound. They play like a Big Ten defense is supposed to play. And so the confidence that we have in this defense, for crying out loud, we almost shut out a team. And I don't care how bad Illinois' offense is. We almost shut out a team on the road in the Big Ten West.
Right.
On the heels of how bad our defenses have been since largely you could go back to November of 2016. That is a huge accomplishment. And they grow each game. Like the incremental improvement that they keep showing. And like Matt Rule, Matt Rule's an educational psychology guy, just like I am, one of us, when he talks about that, incremental improvement, being better in game 12 than we were in game 1, which we've also talked about in this podcast.
Right.
You are seeing that with the defense. I know there's probably going to be some jabroni out there and, our fan base that's going to be like, well, you can't excuse the Michigan game. It happened, like, what are you going to do? No, stats don't lie. You could play Nebraska, Michigan 100 times with these two teams. Michigan is going to win 100 times, just like we talked about last week.
And I think I just want to interject real quick because to that, jabroni, I think you can. I think you can take out that Michigan game. That Michigan game is an anomaly on the season. For a couple of reasons. One, Nebraska's not going to play another Michigan this year.
No.
And two, Michigan, like all the reports,
Michigan will beat Georgia this year.
Well, but all the reports that Michigan played as perfect of a game as they could play against us as well. And we talked last week about Jimmys and Joes and X's and O's, and they've got both.
They've got both. Yep.
Nebraska, to your point, Hoss, this needs to be restated, full of right now X's and O's. Yep. And the guys who are there are on the defensive side of the ball are doing it the right way.
They're grinding.
They're and look, we'll get to the offense, but you still didn't have Luke Reimer.
Yeah.
Last night.
Luke Reimer's out. You're still Cameron Lenhart is a difference maker already as a freshman. He's still not 100%.
Right.
So like you're missing those guys. I think Ty Robinson is starting to attract a lot of attention from opponents because they're really double teaming him, trying to take him out of the play. But like Nash Hutmacher, last year, he looked like he was going to be a bust.
Mm-hmm.
He truly did. He looked like he had zero functional movement, looked like he had zero motor. It just looked like he had bad weight. I'm not talking about like his want to. I'm talking about like what Duval did to him in the weight.
He was built wrong.
He was built wrong. Exactly.
And so I feel like I didn't mean to interrupt you, but that built wrong. I feel like he was stripped down to the frame or to the chassis, and he was built back in a way that makes him a real defensive weapon, especially in a conference like the Big Ten.
Oh yeah, you got to have the tip of the spear, in the Big Ten, on both sides of the line of scrimmage, at center and at nose, and you're starting to see. We'll get to the offense later, but Ben Scott, he's got that nastiness. He's got some dirt bag in him.
We'll get there.
But yeah, this defense. I will go as far to say that the X's and O's on this team right now, the scheming to cover up weaknesses and to improve upon and build upon the strengths that we do have, it is some of the best scheming that we have seen at Nebraska. And again, this is going to be an unpopular opinion with some folks out there. Some of the best scheming we've seen since we started 7-0 in 2016 under Riley, Langsdorf, and Banker. Because when you look at it, that offensive line and Tommy Armstrong in 2016 was a weak point. You had, a young Divino Zigbo on that roster, a senior in Terrell Newby, but then you had some good receivers and you had Seath and Carter at tight end. But we schemed around our weaknesses. And is it a little bit of smoke and mirror? Well, yeah, it's in the name. We're scheming, crying out loud. But we're seeing that on this team where we don't have an elite pass rusher, yet we still get pressure. Right. We simulate pressures. We bring, zone blitzes. Sometimes we'll just go man across the board and bring plus pressure and leave the back end in man coverage. You're seeing really good coaching take place. And to this point, I want to reiterate the fact that it really exposes the Frost era for the fraudulent enterprise that it was. Because you never saw the small, detail-driven coaching take place in the Frost era that we are seeing already under Rule, where situationally guys, are playing good football. Turnovers are going to happen.
Yeah.
We've been plagued by turnovers for a long time, but turnovers are going to happen. But guys don't look in situational football, goal line stand, for instance. Guys aren't getting caught flat-footed or looking wide-eyed, not knowing what to do. They look like they're being prepared throughout the week to encounter certain situations, much like, I know you're going to hate this, Greg, but Bill Belichick emphasizes in the NFL, situational football, preparing your team so that when they encounter a novel situation, they don't panic. They know what to do. We are seeing that. So like Rule said, he said something in the press conference last night that I absolutely loved. You have to enjoy the innocence of the rise right now. He's like, the team's enjoying it. And he goes, and I hope the fans do too. He goes, I know we all want to win big. And basically he's saying, yeah, that'll come, down the road. But like, this could be still one of those years that if you just appreciate where we are at as a program right now, trying to beg, borrow, steal, cobble together a win in any way that we can, dare to win ugly, I think that it's something that all of us will look fondly back on years down the road of, hey, remember Rule's first year? I'm just going to project here. Remember when we went 7-5, 8-5, 8-6, whatever, in Rule's first year? Man, that was a hell of a coaching job.
How do you go 8-6?
Yeah, conference championship game.
Oh, okay. Hey, I mean, realistically, still on the table.
Still on especially in this division. But what I'm saying is, like, enjoy the process of building back to what we used to be. We've been so low at Nebraska that we have this tendency that we don't want to look at the proximal goal right before us of, hey, just win, baby. Just win. Who cares what it looks like? A lot of times, and I've said this about our fan base in the past, myself included, it's not enough to win. We want to win a certain way.
Yeah.
Like hey, we won, but God, we looked awful, Fuck that. We haven't been to a bowl game since the Obama administration. Just win. Just win. And so I think enjoy each game for what it is. Don't start thinking what this means for the future, what this means for division title race, what this means for, 2026. Just focus on the here and now. If you fulfill, it's like in psychology, if you fulfill your daily obligations every single day, you don't need to worry about the future because the future takes care of itself because you fulfilled those daily obligations. Football is a microcosm of life. It works the same exact way. So if we beat in Illinois 20-7, even though we, coughed up the ball inside the red zone a couple of times,
left points on the field,
penalties, game should have been 44-7 for all intents and purposes. You could even make a case should have been 44-zip. But if we do all those clean up those things and we just say, hey, we beat Illinois 20-7. In 2 weeks, we come out, we take care of Northwestern. I don't care if we win that game 7-3. A win's a win. Like you take it and you move on just because for so long we got concerned about not only winning, but how it looked.
Right.
And then under Frost, we were the masters at losing pretty.
Yeah.
I mean, we could make a loss look real good.
Right.
But, it's like just win. In 2029, if Rule is in year 7, year 6, year 7 at that point, and we're still having some serious offensive skill position talent problems, yeah, then you can start bitching. But right now, Just enjoy it for what it is. We're eking out wins, for crying out loud, with a quarterback who Mark Whipple flat out refused to coach last year, and a quarterback who wasn't even on the travel roster to Iowa City last November.
I want to
Try that one on for size, guys.
I want to jump in right there because, with the exception of a few additions, the Billy Kemps, Jeff Sims, who is here but has played in less than 2 games. Some of the freshmen that you mentioned, this is not the guys on the field are not drastically different than the guys who were on the field last year, or were. Let me make an addendum because of Heinrich Harburg, or were not, or were available last year.
Well,
Heinrich Harburg was available last year.
Yeah, and Mark Whipple refused to coach him.
So I'm just
refused. And you know me well enough, Greg. I've defended play callers time and time again at Nebraska. Mark Whipple was indefensible.
But at the same time, you did send me a text last night that said, "Dumbass play calling by Satterfield." There.
Well, yeah, I'm going to call a spade a spade. I'm not Baghdad Bob. I'm not the propaganda machine. I'm not Steve Sipple. Did I say that?
Whoa. No, but I'm saying it's a different mindset from last year's coaching staff to this year's coaching staff. Last year's coaching staff said, for whatever reason, we're going to take what you give us from the players. This year's coaching staff, with the right mindset of, we're going to coach you guys up. We're going to prepare you. We're going to give you the mindset that you can go out there not once but twice in a row and make goal line stands. And with that, again, is it odd that it's the turning point of the game when it's the end of the first offensive possession of the game by either team? That
set the tone.
shifted you could feel it in the crowd, because the Nebraska fans start puffing our chest up. Be like, "You all see that shit? You ain't seen that in a while." And the Illinois fans are like, first of all, they didn't like the calls. They didn't like that neither one of them was a touchdown. But that deflated them because they thought they had a gimme.
I want to mention something. What you said about Nebraska fans starting to kind of look around like, "Oh, we got something here," and because it reminds me of what you said about the staff and the talent that they have to work with. They're coaching them up. This staff has lost going back to fall camp. Let's say it's August 5th.
Yep.
They lost the guy that they had starter at quarterback. They lost their top 2 running backs. They lost their top 3 receivers now. Marcus Washington, Xavier Betts, and Isaiah Garcia Castaneda.
Mm-hmm.
They lost what they thought was an NFL talent, Eric Gilbert. That's 7 players. And we're still eking out wins.
Yeah.
Okay. And you know what? We haven't heard a single time from this staff? An excuse.
And I'll say this because I want to piggyback on something that we brought up quite a bit in very furious tones last week after the Michigan game. Is there is no, in my opinion, there is no doubting the will or the quote unquote want to in this team.
Yeah, they're a bunch of dogs. They got that dog in them.
And laying it out the way you just did, with the inclusion of last night's game, I'll fight anybody who says that. I want to go back and yell more in last week's show about those comments that made about, because no matter how much want to you have, and we talked about this, I don't want to rehash a whole lot. No matter how much want you have inside you, there are some times where you're just going to be outmanned. There are some times where you're just not going to be as good as the other team.
Somebody's always going to be bigger, faster, and stronger.
And we lived that last week against Michigan. But when you have a Nebraska team and an Illinois team that maybe not statistically are right on par, they're not terribly different. They both have turnover problems. They're both 2-3 on the season, 0-2 in conference play. You have, and we talked about this before we started rolling sound, you have the emotional, I don't know if baggage, but maybe the emotional motivation that we thought it might be with the passing of legend of Dick Butkus the day before the game. And I thought I was saying to one of the Coronation listeners who was attending the game from Iowa, drove in on Friday from Iowa for the game. And I said, man, it's very unfortunate. I mean, good long life, hell of a career, good actor. It's just unfortunate, that he passed. But I said, I wonder if this will become like emotional fuel because they want to go out and play extra hard for Dick Butkus type of thing. There is no doubt in my mind that this is a team, maybe not of Jimmys and Joes, maybe not of dudes, but a team. And right now, that's what Nebraska needs. Mm-hmm. Like you'll attract the dudes if you keep doing what you did last night, and that's starting to patch together some ugly wins into a successful, victorious season.
And the big thing too is as that's going on, just support this team. You don't have to like the style that we're winning games because it is ugly. And everybody on the coaching staff would tell you that they would not prefer to win games in this style. That's not why you get into coaching. You get into coaching because you want to really aim at that perfection. You want to try to get it as close to perfect as you can. But man, just enjoy the process of watching these guys get better week over week. Like we said, throw out the Michigan game. At this point of where we're at as a program, it's not 2012, 2013.
No.
Where we're playing Michigan, let's say it's, we're having those kind of records that we were having back then, and we're playing Michigan. It's like, okay, let's take our chance. Let's take our best shot at them, see where we stack up. At that point, it was appropriate to, see how we measure up against teams like this. But now, Michigan's not our peer.
No.
They're not. This team's been to the college football playoff for the past 2 years. This team has won 17 conference games in a row. And so when you look at it, it's like Illinois, that's who you compare yourself to. That's a team that we hadn't beat since 2019.
Right.
We hadn't beat that team since before COVID was a thing, for crying out loud.
Oh, I don't even like it when you put it like that.
Yeah. So I'm good at finding these metaphors and analogies and compare, methods of comparison.
Well,
they're fun to watch, even in warts and all. I enjoy watching them because you're going to see development week over week. You're going to see a month from now, you're going to see us accomplish something that we weren't able to accomplish like the past few weeks. Like you might see the passing game improve. You might see the offensive line improve and start opening up holes. You might see us, go up to East Lansing and, maybe we hit them with some big pass plays in that game. You're going to see this team get better. And when's the last time that you can truly say that we had a team that was better at the beginning at the end of the season than they were at the beginning? It'd be easy to say 2018. We started 0-6, then we finished 4-8. We, won 4 of our last 6 games. But here's the deal. And I've said this many times. I don't want to relitigate the past, but I think it's a useful point of comparison to look at Frost's first year and how he went about things and look at Rule's first year and how he's going about things.
Yep.
Frost inherited a program that hit hard times. We had got our last 3 opponents in 2017 scored 50 plus. That roster was not so bad in 2017 that it would suggest that we would start 0-6 the following year. Okay. Scott Frost, for whatever reason, just didn't translate from UCF to Nebraska. Now, when you compare that to Rule, you're seeing improvement week over week. They're willing to tinker and adjust things to see what works. And they're not pointing towards excuses. Like, have you heard him say, well, we opened the season with, 2 road games against Power 5 teams? Nope. He hasn't really pointed to it. But, you had other coaches pointing to a freak lightning storm that cancels a game. Things that are
come on now.
Control.
Come on now. I still make excuses about that.
No, at some point you are what you are. And so, when you're an ill-prepared football team, you're an ill-prepared football team. That starts with the leadership. And we're starting to see, this staff scrape the barnacles off the ship that the previous 3, staffs left behind. Sorry, I'm fired up. I'm fired up because,
Well, I want to go back to not to rehash and definitely not relitigate. It's not that, but something that you talking about appreciating this team for what it is, and where it is and how it's going to get to that next level. Something that you said at the end of the episode or the show last week after the Michigan game is this team's only job. It's not to make a bowl game. It's not to win out. It's not to contend for the West Division and hope to play for the conference. This team's job is to go 1-0 this week.
Yep. Incremental improvement.
And that's what they did.
Yep. And you know what?
The headlines in Champaign, because I got a buddy who, is a colleague, a coworker. He's an Illinois fan. I won't rub it in his face when I see him at the office on Monday, but he lives up in Champaign. He's like, the local media said the local headlines were something like Illinois didn't win a game Nebraska was trying to lose, or that Nebraska didn't want to win, or something like that. Yeah, I mean, let's get into it. Offense. We talked a little bit about some of the highlights. That go ahead.
It's still evolving. That's the thing. Like we're still developing, and we're starting to find what we do well. We are an option, a quarterback run team, but you started to see the offensive line lean on Illinois a little bit. And I'm not, a lot of stuff needs to get cleaned up on the offensive line. Penalties, missed assignments, stuff like that. But talk about some bullshit, disconcerting signals from the Illini defensive line simulating their movement with, yelling go or stem or move to get Nebraska to jump early. That's disconcerting signals. We've been flagged for that in the past.
Right.
We've been flagged for that this year. Rule even mentioned it, that he had talked to, because Michigan did last week, he had talked to the league office and they said that is a penalty. But that officiating last night was some of the worst officiating. Sorry, trying to adjust my computer. Was some of the worst officiating I've ever seen. I mean, that's with
Nebraska benefiting from a lot of calls.
Yeah. But like the stemming and the moving, like get everybody on the same page, and you can tell that Illinois was feeling pretty, what's the way to put it? They were feeling like they were probably pretty outgunned up front if they were resorting to that tactic.
Yeah.
It's not like it's last year's defense with Ryan Walters as the defensive coordinator, who's, that Illini team last year was really good.
Right.
But right now it's like that offensive line actually started leaning on them a little bit. Like I was relatively impressed with our O-line in certain stages last night. The passing game is always going to be what it is with Heinrich Harburg at quarterback. Accept it for what it is, because it ain't worth getting your blood pressure spiked, when something goes wrong.
I was up there. I was like, oh, he gets running, he gets moving, he just slings it, and that for the benefit of those you watching on YouTube, if you're listening to this, you could try jumping to the 42-ish, 43-ish minute mark of
48.
But that, imagine just the launch point versus that sidearm, 45-degree angle stuff, and had another ball batted down, but every time he throws the ball, I hold my breath.
Oh,
but I've learned that that's with any Nebraska. Honestly, I'm trying to think. Correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe I'm overlooking somebody. Adrian Martinez was kind of the same way.
After his freshman year, yeah.
Casey Thompson. He was.
Nebraska fans have a little bit of a revisionist history with Casey Thompson.
Okay.
Because, his mechanics were good, but a lot of bad decisions still.
Yeah.
And he threw a lot of YOLO bombs to, hey, fuck it, Trey's down there somewhere.
That's true. And the innovator of the YOLO bomb, Taylor Martinez.
Arm punt.
I'm trying to figure out in my mind, and I'll defer to you because you've got the eidetic memory. Who's the last quarterback that you could honestly hang your hat on and rely on?
Honestly, it's like we're relitigating the past.
Is it like Joe Gantz or honestly, Zach Taylor?
I would say Tanner Lee at the tail end of 17. After he had a rough start to the year, and then once got through Wisconsin, Ohio State, he played at a really high level. He threw for 400 yards, and I think 2 or 3 times to end the year. He was spinning it really well. Like at that point, when he dropped back to pass, it was like, yeah, he'll make a good decision. And so like that's a comfort to have. Adrian as a freshman really felt like that too. And then it just kind of dissipated over time.
Yeah. Well, and the thing too is I can forgive. Maybe not. I think I'm easier to forgive a bad mechanics or an underthrown ball or a pass that gets caught in the wind, which happened last night. There passes, there were kicks, but it's the repetitive poor decision making that you just clench your teeth and your butthole and hope for the best.
It reminds me, the band Blood, Sweat, and Tears?
No.
From the 70s. I'm sure you. Okay.
I probably do.
Somebody's going to know it out there. But they have a song, Spinning Wheel. And this is just the mindset I've taken when we drop back to pass. Ride a painted pony and let the spinning wheel spin. You just got to let it rip, man. Like, you just got to lay back and be like, it is what it is.
Yeah. So we had a turnover late in the game, an interception, and that was sandwiched between first an Emmett Johnson fumble and then an Anthony Grant fumble. Emmett Johnson never secured the football. I don't know if it was just a bad exchange. I don't know if that's purely his fault or if joint. Again, things happen. And Anthony Grant I'll say this. I know he was run to the right side of the line, and I think, does he get to the line of scrimmage? I don't know, but if he just keeps going towards the sideline and try to extend the edge, he's got a better shot. But he started doing the Anthony Grant fancy footwork, and that's when the ball got, loosened. Fortunately, again, none of those 3 turnovers came back to hurt Nebraska in the end. It's just unfortunate because it took points off the board. So,
well, I want to start with Emmett Johnson.
And maybe we're being more polite about it or more forgiving because we won the game. I don't know.
Probably. But hey, these things are always easier to talk about in a win than in a loss. But I want to start with Emmett Johnson. I was really impressed with his burst and explosion through.
Agreed.
I think that could be a nice piece as the year goes on. Second of all, when these turnovers happen inside the red zone, 2 fumbles, then Harburg has the interception, not inside the red zone, was the interception inside the red zone? I'm drawing a blank.
I think it was probably closer to like the 30 is where the ball actually got picked off.
Okay.
Give or take.
We had 10 penalties for 70 yards. We had 3 turnovers. Yet we still won the game 20-7. The game should have been 44-7. Yep. Imagine what it looks like when we play a clean game, when we put it all together in all 3 phases. And I'm going to say this, and it might be putting the cart before the horse.
Uh-oh.
Northwestern, Purdue, and Michigan State all have just as bad of offenses as Illinois.
Yeah, I don't think there's any debate or dispute there.
You are looking at the opportunity to, of course, win the bye week first and to get everybody healthy, and then come out and you have the opportunity to string together 3 more wins, be at 6-3, heading into Maryland on November 11th. And let's just try this one on for size. Playing in a stadium back in Lincoln after being on the road to clinch bowl eligibility, that's going to be rocking that we have a bowl eligible team for the first time in 7 years. That's huge. That is a huge opportunity that we potentially have in the next month. We all went. I always love the late season stretch of Wisconsin and Iowa. Those are the 2 measuring sticks for me where we're at. But this 3-game stretch coming up right now is crucial. I mean, I'm talking like this could be the 3-game stretch where years from now you look back on it and you're like, that laid the foundation for Matt Rule at Nebraska.
And
let's go and get it done.
And I'm going to say this. We are we got that. It's a perfectly timed bye week, I think. But at the same time, what I'm about to say is going to be sad. It makes me sad. It's going to make a lot of Husker fans sad. We're already halfway through the 2023 regular season.
Don't do this, Greg. Don't do this.
This is where we cry.
I feel like Brad Pitt in the movie Seven. What's in the box?
No, man. Tell me what's in the box. it's gone by too quick.
You know what? You know how we make that better? By winning the next 3 games, stomping a mud hole and walking it dry on Iowa, maybe even fucking around and winning this division. And we go to a fucking bowl game. Sorry, I'm dropping so many F-bombs.
What are you doing? I'm going to have to change the rating on the show, Hoss. My goodness.
No, it just feels nice to win one.
It's all within reach. Like
right there.
Here's the thing.
Go and take it.
We always talk about how you're masters of your own destiny and your own fortune.
Control what you can control.
You have 6 games left on the schedule. 5 of those 6 are against division opponents. And if you win out, there's a very good chance you're going to Indianapolis.
I don't mean to laugh, but I'm just the absurdity of this thought that I have just came out. Could you imagine? You and I have never done a bowl game edition of this podcast, of a podcast together.
Oh, God.
Could you imagine all of a sudden we find ourselves doing a conference championship game edition?
Oh, that hits me harder than I thought.
Yeah. Yeah. Right?
2010 was the last conference. No, we were
12. We don't want to talk about
Wisconsin.
I don't want to talk about that. That's one game I've never gone and done a postmortem on. Okay, I mean, it's just like, what do you do?
All right. So Andy Ketterson, again, coronation.com, talked about this. He's like, whatever, crazy rituals Nebraska needs to do it during his recap. Did you ever watch Ted Lasso over on Apple TV?
I did not.
All right. So first of all, you need to. Secondly, and I'll tell you why. In the first season, they find out. Spoiler. Look, I love all 3 seasons of the show. I think it's a tremendous show. Very, very relatable, organic, and you can't not love the characters. But in the first season, they find out that like the training room is haunted. Air quotes haunted, because you go back 100 years. The men of the community were invited to come out to the stadium for a tryout for the soccer club or football club, whatever. And when they got there, again, according to the story, it's all fictional anyway, they were not trying out. They were, in fact, conscripted into the Great War. And so the story goes that, you can there's a curse, blah, blah, blah. So Ted Lasso gets the team. He's like, bring an important item to you. We're going to have a little ceremony. We're going to put all the demons to bed, so to speak. And just I don't know where I was going with this, except for the fact that Andy said, maybe there's a Ted Lasso type of ceremony for Nebraska football. Everybody bring your kid's blanket or, stuff, whatever it might be. For this team to put, but look, at the end of the day, it's been far too long since we exercised our conference champion demons. Hoss, we're going to need you to finally put that game behind you.
Actually, I want to bring something up. Way back when I bought that Herbie Husker hat before Frost's first year, that took a picture of it, you used on the cover of the article.
Yeah.
You've seen what that looks like now, that hat, right?
I have it. It's been well worn.
And you know what? The other day, I've always worn that. And the other day, I'm not a very superstitious person. I really am not. I'm just somebody that once I have like a hat or something that I really enjoy, I just wear it.
Mm-hmm.
But I was going to wear that hat yesterday. And I was like, you know what? This hat, just for whatever reason, a lot of memories of really disappointing games.
Yeah.
So I went with a hat that I actually bought the year before in 2017, the one I'm wearing right now. And I'm not, like I said, I'm not a superstitious person, but I'm going to rock this one for the rest of the season.
That's good. That's a good plan. Speaking of superstitions, am I
demons?
Am I or am I not superstitious? So this was.
Are you?
I am. Totally. Oh God, am I superstitious?
I'm not judging. It's a safe space, Greg.
It's like the Office quote. I'm not superstitious, but I am a little stitious. But this was technically my son's second game because he was with me and my wife in 2015 when Nebraska played in Champaign, but he was still in the womb. This was my second Friday night Nebraska Illinois game in Champaign. I think the trick is Friday night games and my son. I was telling Garrett when we left, I said, buddy, we won. We're going to have to go to all the games now the rest of the year. He's like, no way, Dad. Like, let's be realistic. Couldn't afford it if we wanted to. But just I'm a little stitious.
There's nothing wrong with it. That's some of the fun about sports.
Yeah.
We have what we like to wear for games, stuff like that.
Don't get me back to high school baseball. Those socks could have damn near walked off on their own.
Oh God, they basically stood up on their own.
It was bad.
Yeah. I always wore the same undershirt when I played football, and let me tell you, I still have it. I don't wear it ever. It's just one of those things that like
you and Kenny Bell.
It's made a few moves with me,
Yeah.
And that thing, it's been washed many times since then, but man, it's just still smells of ball sweat. Anyone who's played football knows that smell, that shoulder pad sweat smell. It is unlike anything out there.
Well, as we, I don't know if we have much more to talk about with this Nebraska Illinois game. I mean, we talked quite a bit about the defense because that's the real shining spot.
And the offense, there's really not anything schematic to talk about. We just are what we are at this point. We're a run-centric team, quarterback run game option. We're going to take some shots and play action downfield on occasion. We're going to try to find a tight end over the middle. And you just hope that, over time, the O-line continues to coalesce. They are getting better. They truly are. And just start to lean on people. And really just the last thing that I want to talk about is the importance of the next 3 games. Like, I don't care if you've been a Husker fan, if you remember, if you went to your first game in the Devaney era, or if you went to your first game in the Froster Rule era. The next 3 games of Nebraska football should be the absolute most important 3 games in a very long time. Be all in, be committed, and really, just be unified, as a program, because we've been fighting civil wars as a program for so long, and you're still seeing some of that. Some of those vestiges remain. Just be behind this team 100%, and let's go out and win the next 3 damn games. And let's go into Maryland when Maryland comes here on November 11th after this 3 games.
Military Appreciation Day. Let's
have just a rockin' stadium and see if we can go steal one from a pretty damn good team. Maryland's pretty solid. They should have beat Ohio State today, in all honesty. But yeah, be 100% behind this team. I don't care if you're one of those people that it just hasn't meant as much to you since they fired Frank. Or I don't care if it's, something that, you're tired of being let down. Pour all the gas in the tank, get behind this team. I don't care if we win 70-0. I don't care if we win 3-0. Just win.
Imagine what this fan base could do. Because any ESPN poll that's put out there about the greatest team of a college football team of all time, this fan base can mobilize. Imagine our power if we could all come together. To quote the Beatles, come together.
Well, I'm going to say this too.
And all pushing in the same direction, or polling if you want to.
You're getting a little close to saying row the boat there in the same direction there, Chief?
That's not what I was saying.
Are you sure? I was kind of getting those vibes.
I'm saying we Anthony Grant behind our quarterback Heinrich Haarberg, and we push him and the pile away from the goal line, away from the edge of the cliff. Let's go. Let's go.
That's a good one. I want to say this too. We always have a great reputation. What'd you say?
I said roll the boat bullshit.
Yeah, we know you're a big PJ Fleck. You getting plastic surgery now too?
Yeah. All right, move on. Let's go.
No, what I was going to say is we all know the reputation that Nebraska fans have had for traveling to bowl games. I just want, maybe this positive visualization, manifestation, we'll just call it this. Imagine, let's say that we do maintain, we attain bowl eligibility, and whether that's we squeak a 6th win against Iowa to get there, or we have our 6th win locked up by early November, or we go to somehow we go to Indianapolis to play in the Big Ten championship game.
I'm just saying.
You know, like, let's just say, like, regardless, we're bowl eligible. There is so much pent up demand in this fan base from not going to a bowl in so long. Whatever bowl game takes us, they are going to be counting money. They're going to be Scrooge McDucking this money. They are going to be pumped about ticket sales. Like, hell, I think I'm probably going to be trying to go to the bowl game wherever it is if I can afford it. Like, ideally, Las Vegas Bowl would be a great place, you know, nice stadium, Pac-12 opponent. But, like, whatever bowl game, I'm going. I've already made that decision that I will go to the bowl game. But there's a lot of pent-up demand, and I think that we are ready to just embrace the fact that we're going to get to where we want to go by focusing on the small things, focusing on the incremental improvement. And we truly should have a shirt for the podcast with that phrase, because we've been hammering that phrase for 5 years now.
I'm going to see if I can't get John to have something worked up for cobbycorn.com, which, if you are, for the benefit of those of you, that's an old one. All right. I don't know if the promo code will work, but check out the banner, cobbycorn.com. You can get all of your Corn Nation gear there. I can't guarantee that well, no, it says the collection, the RTFB, which is Run the Fucking Ball, collection is out. But apparently the sale ended October 6th. So I got to get with John to find out what the new code is. But go to cobbycorn.com and I'll see if we can't work something up for something incremental improvement. And because it's a phrase that Haas loves, perhaps most of all, we'll make sure that all the royalties go to him. So you could be directly helping Haas pay off his student loans.
Be much appreciated.
Because those bad boys are back.
Yeah. Welcome to Fight Night, Doc.
And I know what I was going to say. Haas, will you be my date to the Big Ten championship when Nebraska's there?
Fuck yeah.
And yeah, no, I'm not going to follow that up with the other thought that came to mind. We've been talking about that for years, and that's just how long it's been since Nebraska's been there. So Indianapolis, before they potentially change it and move it out west, Indianapolis would be a good place to go for Nebraska to get this final quote unquote division of divisional Big Ten football. Go there and compete. What a world we could be in if Nebraska got to the Big Ten championship, especially after starting off losing 3 out of the first 5, including road trips at Minnesota, Colorado, because Colorado's not going to go to the Pac-12 championship, but Nebraska could.
You know what? I still kind of want to hedge a bet here and say I think Colorado will finish with a worse record than Nebraska.
Well, that's what John said.
Yep.
2 of the smartest people I know.
I truly believe that.
Are saying,
you know what? That's why I was so pissed off with the Colorado loss. That bullshit was largely smoke and mirrors.
Yeah.
You know, they took advantage of we couldn't do anything offensively. Defense hung in there. Like, I bet if you played that game in November, I bet we'd win that game.
Because of the incremental improvement that Nebraska will have made by then. Yep. I don't know what we're going to do next week because there's not going to be a Husker game to overreact to, but we'll find something.
Let's collaborate on that.
We'll have a discussion and off air, and we'll bring it to you as needed. You're on a need to know basis, folks, and as soon as we know, we'll fill you in. Haas, man, I appreciate you jumping on with me in the late afternoon hours while my twins are sleeping and before dinner arrives.
Yes. What do you have for dinner here, Chief?
Papa John's.
Okay. All
right. No. So here's the thing. My wife's cleaning. I asked if I could help. She was actually in cleaning the boys' bathroom. So if you can imagine, and I said, anything I could do? She's like, no, not really. I mean, no, you can't fit 2 people in there to clean. And she said, just make sure that dinner is here. I said, I'm going to go record with Haas then.
Yep.
So
I'm glad I could help in some way. I was a conduit.
That would she you know what? She gave me the exact task that I hoped to pull on the chore sheet. So, brother, it's always a blast.
Marriage by Greg Mahatchka.
How to do it wrong so you don't have to do it at all. All right, man. Well, it's always fun that we can laugh more after a win usually than we can a loss. So, buddy, great catching up with you. We'll talk to you again soon.
Sounds good.
And for everybody else out there, go Big Red.
Win the damn bye week.